Friends, welcome this morning. My name is Chris. I'm on staff here at W First United Methodist Church. We're a community that strives to do church differently in full belief of a more transformed and transforming world. Whether it's your first time here, one of many times, whether you are joining us in costume or not, whatever you find yourself thinking about, processing as you're coming into the space, whatever warm beverage you're sipping on, we welcome you here. So this is the fifth Sunday in our monthly church rhythm that we call Sabbath Sundays, which up to this point has been a kind of eclectic mix of exercises and reflections and meditations where we've explored what it means to be restful and rest-filled people. That's what we've had up to this point. This Sunday is a particularly fun Sunday that we've been thinking about for a few months, knowing that it'd be coming up, knowing that it'd be a Sabbath Sunday, knowing that it also would be Halloween. So we're gathered today around this central question of how do we relate to death and dying, especially in this season where literal death, physical, emotional, social, spiritual, all of its forms, right? Just death feels like it has been a part of our story, our collective story over the past few years. And so we're responding to this question. We're taking time to explore some of these things by way of this quirky thing that we call a death cafe. Death cafes are a global phenomena. We promise it's not a thing that we just made up. They happen everywhere, and there's these events in these pop-up locations that center on gathering together with the purpose or intention to normalize conversations around death and dying. So if you're here, there's got to be something about this topic that intrigues you, or at least intrigues one of the people that invited you here or dragged you here to whatever this virtual death cafe space might be. I look around and I see all of these amazing costumes and folks who are just diving fully into it, which I love. For me, I was young when I first encountered death in a real way. There was this year in my teenage years where my grandparents and my dogs all died within a 6-month time span of each other. And subsequent years after that, just having these really strange encounters with death. And I find that even as I find myself sharing about that, that as one person shares about death, there's kind of this healing ripple effect where folks feel comfortable sharing their experiences, one after another, because we've all had some experience with death before. And weirdly enough, death feels like a thing that we all share in common in some way. That said, I'll be honest, I've done a lot of weird things in my time of doing church work. And this has got to rank somewhere on there. So if you're in this space, I am so grateful that you are willing to embrace the strange, the ordinary, the extraordinary, and the sacred in each of our lives. I'm so grateful that you're here, so grateful for what we have in store together. And it's my hope that if you show up in this space with some honesty, some levity, some intention, some great costumes, that this actually could be a space that is worth your while, that our lively explorations around death and dying will actually be something to look forward to in this space. We're going to offer a buffet of different practices engaging death and dying together. There may be some of this that you experience where some of these flavors of the buffet may land more with you than others. There may be some that you find yourself drawn back to, some that you could even refer to later. My encouragement would be to show up for all of them. Listen to whatever stirs in you as we try out some different things, and honor wherever that leads you. And again, I'm convinced that our time together could really be worth your while if you choose to let it be that way. If you know me well enough, you know that I spend a lot of time in my life thinking about breathing and breath. Breath practices for me are a really good way to kind of like ground us in the present moment. And so I can't really think of a better way to start an exploration of death and dying than to return to where life starts every day for each and every one of us, with breath. So where you are, I would encourage you to find a position that's comfortable, to sit upright with your feet firmly planted on the floor, opening your hands, maybe even like placing one of them on your heart so you can like feel your heartbeat, the rhythm of your breath, and sharing breath together. Taking a deep inhale through the nose and out through the mouth. And with a few more breaths, just like that, whatever feels comfortable. If you feel like you want to close your eyes, you can do that as well. But just continuing to breathe. Right where you are, however you find yourself this morning, just welcoming all that is in every moment of peace and quiet that we have here, every interruption, everything that's here. And finding your way back to your breath, just noticing what stirs up as you do. Just holding those things loosely as you continue to breathe, noticing them and then letting them go. Paying attention to the other things that you hear or feel around you, the sound of your heartbeat that you can feel in your chest, the thumping, the rustling of your clothes or your costumes against where you sit, the fidgeting, the wherever you find your mind wandering in this time to other things, just gently nudging it back to that inhale and the exhale. Listening to the closest sounds around you, maybe the sound of your breath, maybe the sound of my voice, and then just gently zooming out another layer and another and another and another, trying to locate what feels like the furthest out sound from you, wherever that is. And not doing anything with that sound, just noticing what it sounds like. Letting go of the need to do anything with it, just noticing its quality. Noticing what stirs up in you as you keep breathing. Finding your way back to your breath now as it comes back to you. And as you keep breathing, just hearing these words, noticing how they land with you, what stirs in you, and listening as these words fall away one at a time. I'll read through these words a few different times, taking away one word each time, and then at the end, we'll all let go together. O death, where is your sting? O death, where? O death. And in that, just letting your mind wander free and go wherever it needs to go, do whatever it needs to do for just these few seconds, allowing yourself to be and to keep breathing. Now bringing yourself back into the room, noticing the sounds, the smells, whatever stirs up in you, and in your own time, whenever you're ready, just opening your eyes again. For me, like some of y'all have shared, breath has such a, being able to have some breathing exercises to remind you of like the very real rhythms in your life that keep you going even when you forget about it, how much we need those things, how much they're important for our lives. And I think particularly in conversations around death, like how much we forget to embrace the like most sacred act of like what it means to be each and every one of us with our unique breaths. Feels like a really cool place to start with our conversations around death and dying. So we're going to shift gears a little bit and work some new muscles now that we've kind of had our warm up. And we're going to do so by way of, by way of trying to visualize a little bit more of what we're describing, because I think when we get into death and dying, there's this feeling, at least for me, where like these are heavy topics. And I think when I think of death and dying, death can feel very real and scary and often abstract even. Like this reality that I know is true, that I also just like don't really have the words to describe or fully feel. And so all of that said, we're going to work some different muscles here. We're going to spend some time exploring our relationship to monsters. What is a monster, you might ask? A monster is a thing we fear. And we don't really take time to like develop like understanding of our monsters, like seeing what they're like, visualizing what they could be, and perhaps sitting with what they can mean as we are thinking about them. We don't talk about our monsters, even though we all have something different in mind when we think about what a monster means to us. So we're going to take just a little bit of time, and I'm actually going to ask you to draw or illustrate whatever you think of when you can think of a monster. An old therapist I used to see used to describe that there was like this deafness, or I mean, literally like these monsters that we like carry with us that go with us all throughout our lives. Like different people were sharing little stories of like childhood and like growing up. And it's so interesting that when we spend time to actually like think about our monsters and the parts of ourselves that we sit with, those feel really real. Like we're describing really real things like fear and anger and frustration and confusion. We don't realize that when we ask questions about death, we're also very much asking questions about the value of life, right? We're asking questions about like conversations here are just like what we're talking about with dying. It's just as much about a conversation about living. I want to shift one more time into a more reflective space, similar to like what we've done here. So I'm in grad school right now, and a classmate of mine has just finished getting certified as a chaplain. So this person spends a lot of time with folks that are like nearing the end of their life. And I don't know if you've ever had this, but like there is a really sacred space that you share with folks as they are like in those close encounters with death, right? They're kind of like when you talk to them, it's like a neither here nor there, right? Like you can feel like they have like one foot in an afterlife and one foot in reality. Like it's eerie. And so she has these like questions that her training has equipped her for folks that are experiencing some form of pain or death or monster. And the questions are this: what is your understanding of where you are right now? What are your fears and worries for your future? What outcomes are acceptable to you, or what do you hope for in a sense? And what would a good day look like for you today? I really appreciate the ways that each of y'all have showed up, and would encourage you to keep dialoguing around some of what stirred up for you just within the small hour alone. If this is where you're signing off, just hear me say thank you so much for engaging in the weird and the strange, in the sacred, in the mundane, in the lively explorations that we've had today of death and dying. Friends, grace and peace be with you wherever you are, however you find yourself today, and I hope you have a wonderful Halloween. Thank you so much for showing up in this space today.